So I was at a, well, wherever they went, Denny and Judy had their 40th anniversary party here and ceremony and things. Yeah, it was really cool. See, everybody's all excited about this. Who knew that we had? But I was there, and afterwards I was talking. A lot of you know Dale Kiefer, and Dale did, get this. You don't get this very often. He did their wedding, and he did their 40th anniversary, huh? So, yeah, I like that. So that just means you start really young. But I'm talking to Dale at the reception, and he asked me, and if you know Dale, and a lot of you do, he pastored in here in the Fluvanna area for I think 122 years. I'm not sure, but it was somewhere right. I would say that if Dale was sitting 42. He really did pastor for 42 years up there. And he asked me, and he says, so Rick, tell me, he's been gone for a couple years now, retired. And he says, what's the spiritual condition of this region right now? And it just like took me a little off guard because I am a person who is so full of hope, and I'm so optimistic, and I just am. But when he asked me that, he said, assess for me right now the spiritual condition of this region. And I said, well, so I had to stop for a second and say, wow. I said, well, first of all, I'm just going to state, my hope is awesome for this region. My hope is amazing. I believe revival's coming. And the stuff that I always say. I really believe that. But then I said, I don't know about right now. I said, I don't think we're doing so good. And I said, I know individuals are doing fine, and that you could pick pockets and a church and that. But I said, if you had to take the region as a whole, I don't know. I said, I think that we're a little lazy. We're a little apathetic. We used to be that, but now we're pretty much a bum. So maybe I'm talking about just me, right? And I'm just thinking, I thought, I don't know if you had to come in as like a consultant from out of town and do a survey of what we think of our region, Warren County, bump a little bit, McKean, a little bit for us, obviously, Chautauqua County, maybe bump a little bit over to Erie County. I'm not sure if we would get a good grade right now. And that's hard to say because, maybe I'm just totally off, and I'm totally fine to being off. But when I was talking, I was like, come on, Dale, I just came here to celebrate an anniversary. Now you're asking me questions. It's making me rethink everything I'm doing. Quit this. But I thought, you know what? It's good to assess where you are, because if you never assess where you are, you're never going to get to where you're going. And I think you probably try to do that in your life a little bit, and in your family, or if you run a business or a ministry, whatever it is. It's good to every once in a while say, all right, let's be honest, how am I doing now? I know where I want to get, and I know I'm going to get there. Where am I right now? Whatever. If you do that in any physical training, you can't say I want to run a 4-minute mile and just go out and I'm going to do it. Slow down. You're running an 8-minute and 22-second mile right now. Going to be a process, all right? So it's good to assess where you are. I want to weigh 100 and whatever pounds. Well, you weigh 300 and something. Don't just think you're going to skip a meal and get there. You're going to, is it good to know where you are so you know how to get where you're going? And so it was a good reality check for me, and it doesn't even remotely make me think any less of where I'm convinced God has us going. It just was a good, maybe we're not there right now. Maybe it's time to say, okay, we got a road, we got a path, we got a place to go, we got a way to get there. It's going to happen. It's all right here. But I don't want to rest here. So I want to go to, let me just read Matthew 6:33. You know this. This is where Jesus is talking to his disciples and anybody else who was listening at the Sermon on the Mount. And he was talking about worrying. Interesting, AJ read that thing on worry. Where did you go? That was pretty good. We have... I wrote it, yeah, I know. After I said that, I thought, well, that was a little self-serving. Listen. Wow, was that amazing? Who wrote that thing? but we should, maybe because you said, let me just tell you why that isn't quite self-serving. I wrote that whole book in about a day and a half, and then I read it and I thought, my gosh, I don't even think I was thinking that stuff when I wrote it. So I'm not going to take much credit for that at all. But I really encourage you to get, if you have those, get them back out. If you don't, I know we have some. And if we run out, we should print some more. It is really good to get back into encouragement daily on why worship is essential. So I guess I just thank you for the reminder of that. But what it said is worry is such a big deal. And this is a time where we are really worrying or worried about whatever it would be. And I want to hopefully, as I talk today, have us see that worrying or having something to worry, maybe this, having something to worry about doesn't mean you're unspiritual. There is really something to worry about. There's something real out there, but how do we respond to it, and how does it hold us or affect us is what I want to get to. And as he's talking about, you don't worry about what you wear or what you eat or how you look or how pretty you are, because he really gets into that with the lilies of the valley, or how this or how people think about you. He says, listen, he says, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. And what he's talking about there is food and clothing and needs. But it's not just, I don't want you to see that as just, I have a burlap bag around me. Well, what does he equate the clothing to? The beautiful lily of the valley, right? So he even takes it a step further to go into the emotional part of the needs. So yes, the physical needs, but then he goes into the emotional parts of the needs. So, but what he says here is, if you want to get away from living a life of worry, it's seek first the kingdom of God. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. So I want to get that in you because that's a good verse to memorize. But now I want to take you to 2 Chronicles 20, and I want to show you how it really played out in the account of Jehoshaphat and the Moabites and the Ammonites and some other people that came against them. Taught on this a lot. In fact, it was 2 years ago, the end of April, I taught on this the last time. I'm going to teach on it differently, but that was, and again, I'll go get ahead of myself. But the last time I spoke on this teaching, I taught this word about how, stand, and you don't need to fight. You stand there and worship and watch what God does. Then in 3 days, all the land behind us was given us. Is that not weird? That was just bizarre, the timing of that. And so that takes you back a little bit of a history of how that. But I want us to see how they responded to something that was clearly worthy of worry. And how did Jehoshaphat and his armies respond? So it's a whole chapter. You're going to need to read it. The story goes that Jehoshaphat was the king of Israel, Judah, and at one time the people from Moab, the Moabites, and Ammon, the Ammonites, and another group of people from Mount Seir, they came to attack him. And they were east of them. They were in the area of like the Jordan, across the Dead Sea and in that area. And it was bad. They had 2.5, 3 armies coming against them. And it was bad. It was really bad. And they weren't going to win. They started to do the count. We got 16 guns. They have 3,258. We ain't going to make it. And so they really didn't, they were in trouble. But I want you to see how they dealt with this. Understand these are real people. These aren't fictitious people in a cartoon story. These are real people who one day were facing a massive enemy. And how did they respond to it? Because I want us to see that in our lives, whether it's individually, collectively, nationally, whatever, internationally, we face enemies. And that's never going away. Don't think that, we beat that thing in 1978. We're good. No, you're not. Even the person who says, well, I beat cancer. I'm home free for the rest of my life. Really? I don't know. I'm thinking you're not. We're always going to have enemies. We're always going to have things that come against us, always. As long as you are doing this, you got enemies, right? So don't stop doing that. Just understand how to live while you're doing it. And so they go on. They got this whole thing. It's going to be really bad, and they're in trouble and all that stuff. And so they go, and Jehoshaphat leads them, and they're seeking God. They all came out, and they all the men, women, children, and Jehoshaphat and the priests and everybody came out, and they were seeking God, and God begins to speak. But I'm really just going to pull one verse out of this, and it's verse 12, and this is in the prayer that caused God to respond. And it's the second half of verse 12. But I don't want to get too much into the fact that they're Moabites and Ammonites, because for most people today that means absolutely nothing. But Moabites and Ammonites were continual problems for Israel. And interesting where they come to. You go back to Genesis 19 and read about this. But the Moab was the son of Lot's daughter, who had a child by her dad because she got her dad drunk and wanted to get pregnant. These are the things when you read the Bible to your kids, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to skip a lot of things. It's a bizarre story. Abraham's nephew had a child through his daughter because the daughter didn't think she was going to be able to find a guy, so she got her dad drunk after they left Sodom and Gomorrah. Out comes Moab. Nice. Well, there's another daughter, did the same thing. Out came the Ammonites. So the Moabites and the Ammonites are actually, in a weird way, descendants of Abraham through a bizarre way. So they have always been there. They've always been trouble. I want you to see that, because a lot of the things you deal with in your own life they just are continually there. They're always there. Why does that person always have to deal with that thing? Or why does that town always seem to be dealing with the same thing? Or why does that nation seem to be dealing with the same thing over and over again? I am not going to teach on this. I'm going to throw this out because it's cool, and I don't want to formulate it. But a lot of times when the issue comes out of our own seed, we struggle with it. And it struggles with us. Because we kind of produced it. And so how do we get rid of it? I'm literally just throwing that out there for you to think about. Because you can't kill your own seed. So it's not like the neighbor who you don't like and you beat him up and you move away. It's something that you produced. Well, I didn't produce it. Abraham lived, 1,500 years before this. Not my problem. Well, it's still just there. It's hard to get rid of it. And you have things in your life that they're multiple generation things. And I can't get rid of it because I don't, I can't really bump off all my children. They kind of like to some days, but it's not good. And so I just got to keep dealing with this. And so I want to give you some insights into how to deal with that nagging thing. Maybe you didn't produce it, but it's somehow linked to you. The Ammonites, the Moabites, and the Israelites were all linked together. They all had some connection to Abraham. And so they couldn't just say, gone with you. In fact, they didn't even, when they went into the land, they couldn't kill the Moabites. They couldn't kill the Ammonites, which is an interesting thing. And it's partly because they were connected. Again, those are just things because you driving around or whatever, you need to think about things. I want you to think about that and let the Lord speak to you on that. So instead of going after the Ammonites and the Moabites, they went to God. Because there's two different ways to fight a battle. One is to go out and fight. And the other is to go to God and say, you got to show me how to fight, because I don't know. And so watch how they go against this battle. So they say in the second part of verse 12 there, these armies are coming against them. And Jehoshaphat says, "For we have no power to face this vast army that is attacking us. We do not know what to do, but our eyes are upon you." This verse has 4 things in it, and I want us to get this because I think this could really change my individual life, our lives. Again, I would love it if I could speak to an entire nation. I would love to grab any person in any type of leadership and run them through these 4 things because this would change everything. I want to go through a 4-step process that Jehoshaphat said here. And you can go do that triangular slide thing up there. The first thing they did is they said there's a vast army attacking us. Let me just read them all because you're all reading them, so I might as well join you. Otherwise, you just leave me. The second thing they did is he said, we have no power over it. Vast army, we have no power. Third thing, we don't know what to do. And the fourth thing, our eyes are upon you, Lord. So this four things that Jehoshaphat stated are what put them in a position to gain the victory. Let me just run you ahead a little bit in the story. So God shows them, a prophet speaks and says, you're not going to have to fight this battle. The Lord will do it for you. So they go to battle. They send out the singers first. And they're singing, give thanks to the Lord for his love endures forever. And so they go to battle and they send out the choir. And it's just as a funny picture. And out they go and they get there and they come to the battle. And I'm sure they're still scared, but they're walking to the battle. They get to the battle and everybody's dead. Like, wow, that's pretty cool. All the Ammonites got mad at the Moabites and the people from Mount Seir. I think it was Ammon. The Ammonites and Moabites first got mad at the people from Mount Seir, so they killed all them. And then the Moabites and the Ammonites said, I don't like you either. No, I don't like you. And they killed everybody. And so the Israelites walk out, Jehoshaphat and the Judah walk out, and they just say, whoa. And they just start picking up the gold. They start picking up that's a nice sword. I'll take that one. And, gee, look at this guy left a bag of this. And look at the sandwiches there. I'm taking that. And they just went and they took the spoils. There was no battle to fight. So all the things that were coming against them were gone. Just like that. But I want you to see the process that they did to get there because we have to get this process in our lives down. The first thing they did, Jehoshaphat stands up. He's the leader. He's the king. He's the military leader. He just had appointed judges, so he's over them. He's the guy. And the first thing he says, he stands up and states what no politician would dare state today. Something's attacking us. If you don't believe something's attacking you, I promise you, you won't win. And now we struggle with this. You mentioned, Jeff, last week about the extremes of the faith healing and stuff like that. One of the things that gets a little skewed in faith circles is, whatever, if you twist your knee, and in some camps, if you said, wow, my knee hurts, well, what's the matter with you? Don't speak that curse over you. Dude, I'm not speaking a curse over me. My knee hurts. Okay? It hurts. I'm not prophesying that. I am just stating my knee hurts. There's no spiritual connotation connected to that. It hurts. When I step on it like this, it hurts. And so we get into this judging spiritual, you're carnal. Give me a break. If my knee hurts, it hurts. Well, this is Jehoshaphat, if he were a politician today, he would either say, there's no army out there. Let's just go play in that desert. Dude, there's an army out there. No, there's not. I'm going to take my kids out. Come on, there's a real army there. Or maybe the other extreme would be, the army's so big, let's run to Egypt. And you create this magnificent army. that is so massive, all you do is stick your head in the sand and run to Egypt. So right now we just do two extremes. Nobody's willing to say, my knee hurts. Maybe if we started to identify there's a vast army, we'd be on at least the right path to gaining victory. So they said there's a vast army. Then they said the thing that no leader ever wants to say. Look at the second thing he said, a vast army. Okay, maybe we could agree with that. But the second part nobody would dare say. We have no power over it. It's not a good campaign speech. Right? There's a lot of problems in America. Vote for me, but I'll just tell you, I don't have any power over it. Or if you get to the third thing, I don't know what to do. That's even a funnier campaign speech. Yeah, I got no answers. I think I honestly would vote for that guy. Totally, I'm in. The guy who says I don't know what to do has my vote, period. Because finally somebody's honest. So that he says there's a real army. He says we're powerless. Watch this. If you really are powerless, it's better to admit it than just go to battle. Right? If you go to battle and you're powerless, you don't come back from battle. So he admitted, now I do believe if you read chapter 19 and 20 together, you see there's a little progression in Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat was brought to this place by God and by the prophetic word that would come to him. And he was really brought to his knees in repentance and realized he didn't have all power and realized he wasn't the toughest king out there. And so he said, we have no power over this vast army. And then he said the third thing, and this is really remarkable that a king would say this. He says, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. It's a remarkable thing to say. So few people are willing to say, I mean, this is the ultimate of humility, right? We can say, we need to be humble, but I have all the answers. I'm humble and omniscient. So therefore I know I'm humble. So but to say, I'm not sure what to do. And even if you say, I think this is the way to go, but how's your heart? Is your humility that maybe I know, maybe I don't? That humility, because the third thing produces the fourth. And the fourth says, Jehoshaphat said, but our eyes are on you, Lord. Our eyes are on you. Now that next thing, I want you to see the progression is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Because we need to get to 4. Because after 4 are the answers. Write down, you only get the right answer after number 4, but you can't get to number 4 until you affirm numbers 1, 2, and 3. The answers from the Lord are after you seek him. But you'll never seek him until you realize there's a vast army, you're powerless, and you don't know what to do. You have to affirm 1, 2, and 3. You have to be willing to say, I don't know what to do. This is a really hard time in anything you're leading. Family and business. A lot of you are business owners. A lot of you are educators. A lot of you are in some form of, I've got to make decisions. It's really hard to make decisions. You know why? Because nobody knows what to do. And if nobody knows what to do, who in the world are you going to follow? I don't know. Because nobody knows what to do. They just don't. And I'm telling you, if somebody were to say that, wouldn't it be refreshing? Wouldn't it be refreshing for somebody to say, I'm not sure what to do? And that would be what produces seeking the Lord. And seeking the Lord would be what produces receiving the answer. And that's what, this strange battle plan of sending the worship team out first. Don't do that all the time. Right? This would not be, what's America's military, I'll campaign on this. Well, our military strategy is going to be, hire a choir, send them into Iraq. Okay, please don't do that unless God says, hire a choir and send them into Iraq. Because if you're following the Lord, there's not a cookie cutter answer. There's not an A, B, C answer. There just isn't. In fact, when you look at how the Israelites went and took over the promised land, the first place they took, as you know, is Jericho. Jericho was cool. They marched 7 times around the city. They in silence, right? The first 6 days were in silence. Then the 7th day, they marched 7 times. And then they blew these horns and walls fall and everybody is gone. That's cool. It's the only time that ever happened. It wasn't like let's study Israeli military strategy and all that's in there is 7 ram's horns. No, they did it once. Why? Because one time they saw a big army, Jericho. They saw big walls. They realized they didn't have power over it. They didn't know what to do. And they said, Lord, help us. And he said, okay, walk around that place. Well, the next time, the next city was this dinky little city, Ai. Remember that one? And they said, hey, no problem, God, because what did they say? There's a little enemy up in Ai. They did not say they're powerless. And they didn't say, I don't know what to do. They said, little city, we know what to do. Go. This little city beat the snot out of them. Because why? Because they thought they were all powerful. They weren't all powerful. They served an almighty God. I get it. It's a total miracle, but all miracles, our tendency is to personalize the miracles. I saw a miracle, therefore I was in the room. I must be the all-powerful one. Let's do it again. It might not be there. Because God wants us entirely to lean into him and to trust him and to follow him. And so the thing I want to encourage is, and of course this I could speak this, usually I always have a message prepared when the nation calls me to address everybody. And this would be one of them. But I'm telling you, this is for us as individuals. If pick your problem. Let's say you have a health problem. Well, this is a good pattern for a health problem. So I got a health problem. I can't fix it. Doctors can't fix it. Can't fix it. I'm not sure what to do. Lord. Say you have a problem in your family. You've tried a lot of things. It's a relational thing. Maybe it's your marriage. I did this. I tried that. You did that. The other thing. You know what you need to do? I got a problem in my family. I can't fix it. I don't know what to do. Lord. Right? What if we have a problem in our town? Wouldn't it be refreshing to have a town come together? Say, we got a problem. I don't know what it would be. We don't have any jobs. Our schools are this, or that is that, or this is the other thing. We have a problem. We can't fix it. We've tried for 5 decades. We can't fix it. I don't know what to do. Lord. You don't think that God would respond to that? That's like the ultimate if we were to do that. As in any, individually, even as a church, as whatever it would be, that pattern will work. And it's not a cookie cutter pattern because I don't know where any of those roads lead. Because it's not always the same. But I'm telling you, it always begins with humility. And so even because here's the other thing, I'm going to tell this, I'll tell you this story. This kind of shows how in the natural we try to do something. And when there's a problem, have any of you just said, you know what, there's a problem, so I'm going to do something? Just do something? Did that ever make the problem bigger? Right. I think I have it. Throw that slide about doing something. This is a really important principle because I'm looking at people of action. Don't do something just so you can say you did something. This is the natural way to do it, and this is very not following the Spirit way of doing things. I did something. Why'd you do it? Because I had to do something. And this is a number of years ago. I had to deal with. It was during the time when they were shifting background checks for people who worked with children because of physical abuse and sexual abuse that had come up in the state of Pennsylvania. And because I was president of an organization that dealt with kids, well, it was Little League, and I had to get with all the other presidents of Little League, and we needed a plan because the state had passed a law that was going to cripple Little League and cripple churches and cripple soccer and all that stuff. Because what happened was they were going to do, you had to do an increased number of background checks, and it was going to cost, I can't remember the number, maybe it was like $50 to get to get a background check on a coach. We had something like 200 coaches at the time, and we were going to have to put $50 per coach to get a background check. Do the math. It's more money than we had. It's $10,000, isn't it? $10,000 we were going to have to put into background checks. It was going to do the same thing for churches. We have about, at that time, I think we have about 100 people that we do background checks on here so they can work with kids. Again, that's like $5,000. And, it's so there's a thing going on. So I talked to somebody at the state and, representing this region, and I said, hey, this is going to hurt us. And he was saying, he says, well, you understand the problem, da, 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 da. I said, I totally get the problem. And both at the church and the Little League at that time were doing it. We were already doing extensive background checks. They were cheap, and they were way better than the state background checks. We found we can do this to you. We can find out if you got a parking ticket in California. We're that cool here. And the state one actually only found out if you got arrested in Pennsylvania. So they were different. So I said, man, we're already doing that and da-da-da-da. And so we're going back and forth on this thing and all this. It was post Jerry Sandusky thing. And so the state was reacting to that. And so they're going back. We had to do this. And I said, yeah, but you're going to shut down all youth organizations. The Boy Scouts going to get shut down, the Little Leagues, the soccers, the churches. You're going to shut down churches. How could church have children's program if you're going to have this much of that? We're going back and forth on all this stuff. And then she says, well, the guy said, well, we had to have them follow the same background checks that teachers have. No, she said this. He said this. He said, we have a problem because in Pennsylvania we have teachers who are abusing stuff like that, because obviously that happens in every profession, right? I said, well, whoa, wait a second. You want us to follow the same background checks that the teachers have to follow? And he says, yeah. I said, you just told me that we have one of the highest, abuse even in our education system. And he says, well, yeah. I said, come on, man, this doesn't make any sense. And he says, well, we had to do something. Yeah. Literally, his words, we had to do something. And I said, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. What you're doing is shutting down everything you were trying to protect, because you're doing something just so you can say you did something. I'm telling you, there's a huge danger in doing something just so you can say you did something. It might destroy the ones you're trying to protect. And you might do that in your family. You might have a trouble with a kid. And you say, well, we've got to do something as parents. Let's just punish the heck out of them. Well, you don't even know what you're punishing them for, right? You just have to do something. Slow down. We've got to seek God. We have to seek him. We've got to seek him for answers. I don't want to leave that story and leave you hanging in funny things. One thing that actually happened really cool about that, the state dropped all fees for all background checks as a result of the organizations coming and putting pressure on the state. That was a cool thing that came out. And also that had nothing to do to speak negatively about teachers. So please don't hear that. You understand what I'm saying. When I say stuff like this, Henry, I get super nervous because now I'm realizing, oh no, listen, there's plenty of abuse everywhere. It's equal opportunity. It goes around everywhere. Lord help me. Because right here, this is like one of the top professions that has multiple abuse. So just so you know that, I'm in the camp of many, many abuses right here. So let me just refresh this, and I just want to encourage you with this, and Jamie can come back up and kind of lead us in at the end of worship. But my call for all of us, and if you're looking for what is What is a heart for the nation at this time? What is a heart for a town at this time? This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for humility. What's the heart for the church? I'm looking to be humble. I want us to be humble. I want us to be readily admitting, I don't get it. I don't know it. I'm not sure. Somebody says, well, trust science. Really? What the heck is science? I have no idea anymore. Used to be if you poured this here, it did that. Now it's, well, you got an opinion, you got an opinion, you got an opinion. Make your science fit your opinion. We have no clue. We don't know what anything is anymore. And all I'm looking for somebody to do is say, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. We don't have natural power. My heart for revival, if you're looking for what are signs when revival are coming, it's when you start hearing people talk like that. Humility. Humility. Humility is wrapped up in grace and forgiveness and all these things. There's big problems. I don't have the power to fix them. And I'm not sure what to do. So Lord help us. Lord help us. Don't be surprised if he does it right there for you, in your family, in your situation. He just will. He's faithful. I guess that's kind of a quote there, a loose paraphrase of 2 Chronicles 7:14. The answer always includes humility, prayer, seeking God's face, turning from our wicked ways, and then he will hear from heaven, forgive our sins, and heal our land. He just will. Don't be afraid to admit there's a problem. There's a big army out there. But don't end there. Don't be afraid to admit that you don't have power over it. But don't stop there. And don't be afraid to admit that you're not sure what to do. But don't stop there. Say, Lord, hear my cry. And then wait, because he wants to produce in you, through you, an amazing answer. How cool would it be if you were on the ground floor of a massive turning to Christ? Right? Why not? You know, every move starts someplace. One week I talked about that crazy stuff that happened in Kentucky. You think any of those people who lived in the fields of Kentucky thought we would be talking about them 150 years after that? No clue. They just said, wow, I'm convicted of my sin. God help me. They changed the world. I am totally looking for a revival to not come out of the cities. Actually, I'm looking for people to come out of the cities and come back to places like here. What would attract somebody here? Humility, seeking God for answers, and God producing answers and changing lives. So Father, even as we come here now and talk about and sing about you and go to you, we come with that heart, that heart of humility, that heart of, we don't have the answers. Whatever it would be, I pray for families here. We celebrated, 90 years and 2 couples of marriage. That's awesome. Father, right now there's people struggling. Father, give them that same heart that can't figure it out. If we could, we would. But Lord, our eyes are upon you, or whatever the situation might be. Our eyes are upon you. And in humility, we call upon you for answers. Lord, have us not be afraid to lead. Have us not be afraid to lead, but not lead in our own strength. Lead in humility, seeking you. And that makes you the leader, because we will continually defer to you for all the credit. Hallelujah, Lord.